All right, here we go again. Hi, Andre. Hi, Marius.
Hi.
Um, this is episode 5 now, is it, or is it episode 4?
Five, yeah.
5. There we go. So effectively, here we have Marius Bughiu, who's a software developer from Romania. We want to get into quite a bit about what it takes to be a software developer. So, Marius, could you please give us a quick intro into who you are, what you do?
Yeah. So, hi, I'm Marius. I'm from Oradea in Romania, and yeah, I'm currently a principal software engineer at UiPath. I've been here for about 1 year and a half now, working on one of our main developer tools, let's say. And yeah, I manage a team of four here. Um, Before that, I've been for about 2 years at um, a product company based in the US, and then for another 8 or so in an outsourcing company, which is a local company here in Oradea. I work mainly with Microsoft technologies, but not just that. I kind of dabble with, I don't know, everything that I find interesting, that I like. So
Mhm.
yeah.
All
All
right.
right.
What I would first start off with, you mentioned that you were a principal software engineer.
Yeah.
Uh, how how is that different from a regular or a senior software engineer? Do you want to get into the whole how the system works, how the roles work, how the ranking, I guess, for lack of better words, work?
Yeah, we can if you want. So I think like every company has different levels. Um, you will see a lot of companies have just three levels, which is junior, media, and senior. You will see other companies which have each of these three levels separated in three groups. So you'll have junior one, junior two, junior three, and then you'll have levels four, five, six, which are media, and seven, eight, nine, which are senior. And then I think this one where you have juniors, software developers, and then seniors plus principals. Then you have senior principal and I think distinguished. This is something that you will see at I think corporations. Uh, UiPath has a similar system. I think Microsoft has the same. So I think it's one way for these companies to retain talent in a sense, because what happens is you start as a junior and in a couple of years you will be advanced, right? You become a media, you then become a senior, and from senior, where do you go? And what you will usually see is that people, I don't know, yeah, there are some roles which are like solution architect or software architect, but usually the only way up, let's say, is towards management, right? So I think this is one way to give individual contributors a way to move forward, to better themselves and remain in kind of an individual contributor role. So you don't lose them because you force them into management.
All right, makes sense. And also, you mentioned working in companies based in Romania and also based in the US.
Yeah.
Just off the top of your head, is there a big difference between the two in terms of culture, in terms of ways of working or expectations?
Um, I th- I'm not sure if like where the company's based off is what matters most, because for example the previous companies yeah was based in the US, but actually most of the employees were from Europe, or at least the engineering team. And yeah, we had people in Bali, in um, yeah, yeah, we had people all over the world, basically. And I think the people you interact with, their culture is what matters. Even UiPath, we say it's a Romanian company. It is, but it's actually headquartered in the US right now. So does
Okay.
that change anything? No, not really. So if during my day-to-day job I interact with people from Romania, it's the Romanian culture, let's say. If I have to interact with people from the US, it's going to be, yeah, a bit
Right.
different, but
Nice.
Okay. So when you were working with people from all over the globe, were you working async or
yeah.
how would you? Okay.
Yeah, that's a big I don't know, shift in way of working. So, and it was a kind of a big switch for me when I worked here for 8 years in a local company. Everything was done in those 8 9 hours that you were in the office, right? You needed something, you could go to that person's desk and bump his chair and say, "Hey, we need to discuss this." And I don't know, it's really nice because you can gather a lot more information. You can have people join the conversation even if they're not invited. So you're talking in an open space about some issue, and then somebody else from another desk comes and uh, chimes in, and you get a lot more information, and you are able to solve problems in a certain way. When you move to a remote role, it's it's different. Yeah, you might have to, I don't know, ask your questions and wait a day until you get the answer because that person is in a completely different time zone, or maybe it simply has a completely different schedule. Like we didn't have a working hours, let's say, in in the previous company. We just um, worked whenever we wanted, so we would do our own schedules. And as long as you would do your job, nobody would mind.
All right.
That's interesting coming from, I mean, for myself at least, coming from a background where I've pretty much done a daily stand up since joining IT.
Yeah, we did. So even in that setup, we tried to do um, dailies. So we didn't necessarily call them dailies. We called them sync meetings, just so I don't know.
Yeah.
People are scared when they hear Scrum usually, and
Yeah.
let's start doing Scrum. So calling them sync meetings, let's just sync, so we know what we're working on, and iron out any blockers. I think that's more friendly, let's say, to the engineers. So we did that, and I think those are important.
Mm.
But at the same time, it wasn't mandatory, and even right now at UiPath, they're not really mandatory. You'll have like everybody join because they are interested, but if you cannot join, that's perfectly fine. You don't need to stress over it that you're not making the meeting or anything. So
S- So currently, are you working in a Scrum setup, or how would you describe your way of working?
I don't know if we ever worked in a Scrum setup. Uh, no, let's say it's an agile way of working. We don't do estimates. We do have sprints, um, and we have this sync meeting. We have some of the ceremonies, like we have a demo at the end of the sprint. But for example, we don't do retrospectives at the end of each sprint, and we don't do them at team level. Like my team, we are just five of us, but actually we are multiple teams working on the same product. And then there's even bigger teams working on a collection of products. So we kind of do the Scrum meeting, the retrospective meeting, one level higher with a bigger team, and we do it less often. So every month or two. But yeah, it's not.
And right, do you think that's efficient? So actually, two questions here: if it's efficient, if it's happening once every 1 or 2 months, and also if it's efficient if it's with a bigger team, because you don't have the same privacy and the same kind of
Mhm.
safe circle to open up and share your thoughts or ideas.
Yeah, it's the same problem with retrospectives always. I think even in small teams, it's hard to get stuff from people. So the people you get stuff from, they will usually speak in a larger context as well. So you can still get the same feedback. People who will not contribute necessarily, I don't want to call it bad feedback, but saying that what went well and keep doing, that's the easy stuff. Saying what didn't go well or what we need to improve or stop doing, that's the feedback you're kind of
Mhm.
looking for, especially when something is not going right. So I'm not sure if um, having a smaller or bigger team changes things. And I also I'm not a big fan of this ceremony because I don't know, I don't like to wait until the end of the sprint or
Yeah.
the end of the month to just gather this feedback. I think if something doesn't work, say it on a channel. Let's start a discussion, create a Jira task with the issue that you're seeing, and from there on, it gets prioritized and expanded, and then the issue hopefully gets resolved or the situation gets improved. So just the main issue with waiting until the retrospective is that you have the issue now. This is the moment it's frustrating, right? At the end of the week, after you've passed, you finished something, and you're feeling good about finishing stuff, you will have forgotten about that issue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
in that setup, yeah. I'll just say one thing which I
Yeah.
find it weird, and perhaps we will explore in the future. Actually, I don't find it weird, but we will explore in the future. Is at some point during an interview, I was asked if I were like out of all the ceremonies, what would I focus on most, and what do I think is the most important? And I know I wasn't the only one thinking like that, because I was discussing this with a group of Scrum Masters, and most of us agreed that the retrospective is the most important. But I do also understand where you're coming from, because I think retrospectives are not really done as they should be done. And I was there as well, even as a developer, where we were having the same layout, and we were perhaps going one by one and just asking people, do you have anything to add, or do you have any complaints,
Mhm.
or anything that was working well that we need to keep doing. Uh, but yeah, I think this is something that perhaps Vlad will end up exploring in the future.
Yeah.
But I
Absolutely.
I totally understand Marius where he's coming from
No,
as
yeah.
well. So
No,
I,
I've
I
been reading into it, and yeah, it's kind of the difference between Agile and Scrum there. But I wanted to ask Marius, do you have the roles that kind of, I guess, Scrum? Do you have a Scrum Master or a product
no,
owner?
no, no.
No. So it's just the developers on their own.
Yeah, well, we do have kind of a product owner, but we call it a product manager.
Right, the all kind of old school. So
Yeah.
would you say in that case that you work in XP? since you don't have the ceremonies, you don't seem to have the roles. You have almost like the self-governing developers, or do you not call it a? And do you not kind of define it as any framework in particular? Just you
No,
just refer to it as agile.
yeah, we don't define it as a certain framework. We just do what's best for us,
Yeah,
and
fair enough.
I kind of like this idea, and I keep Andre kind of knows my opinions. I keep saying that Scrum is different for everyone, and uh, you should keep the stuff that makes your team work well. And if people are frustrated with a certain thing like the retrospective, or they don't find the value in it because they simply have a different mechanism that they like to provide feedback, um, yeah, just don't do it. Adjust the process to your needs.
Yeah,
No,
I
that's
mean,
fair.
I 100% agree with this, that you don't force Scrum just for the sake of it. So if whatever they're doing is working, then go with it. If they want to improve the process at any point and perhaps bring Scrum masters, they still don't need to call it Scrum, even if they start doing retrospectives
Yeah.
at a different pace or whatever. So yeah, I'm
In,
actually on board with
in,
that.
in fact, I think, yeah, it might even be a little bit confusing calling it Scrum while not doing it as Scrum. You might just want to say, okay, it's not quite Scrum. We're doing what works for us, and we're kind of taking bits and pieces. It can, yeah, it
There's a
makes
word for
sense.
that, by the way. If you heard it, if you heard about it, it's Scrum, but
Scrum.
uh, yeah, yeah, it's actually a thing, and I think, I think most of the Scrum masters know about it. It's Scrum, but it's when you say you're doing Scrum, but we're not doing this and we're not doing that
Hmm.
and we're
Yeah.
skipping this. So it's Scrum, but
I
um,
think people like to say they're doing Scrum just because that kind of gives them confidence. They are following a framework, let's
Yeah.
say, and everybody's doing it, so we're doing it
Yeah.
as well, so we're good. If you're saying Agile, I think it's kind of a big, like, what is Agile?
yeah,
It's
Yeah, well, it's a marketing thing that
yeah,
everybody's using Scrum because everybody wants to label themselves Scrum, but not
yeah.
everybody kind of wants to do it, which is
Mhm.
fair enough.
And just a bit back to your point about forcing or not forcing people to do stuff. Sometimes it's good to force them, especially when you have I don't know, in a context where you have more junior people who are literally afraid to speak out. They are quiet in the team, and maybe force is a strong word, but you give them a stage. So in those contexts where you don't get feedback, yeah, that's where a process helps. And
Yeah,
you give them the stage. You say, okay, what do you have to add to this? What do you think we can improve? What went well? And even if they only say the what went well stuff, at least they are speaking their mind. They are
yeah,
getting used to the process, and in time they will start giving more valuable feedback.
yeah.
and do you have? Sorry, I was wondering if you have that approach with any juniors in your company or any developers that you're responsible for. If you have that one to one where you're kind of trying to get feedback in a certain way.
Mhm. Um, I don't have juniors on my team. It's but I do have one-on-ones. I'm new to the team, just 1.5 years, so it hasn't been like a long period of time. Still, yeah, one-on-ones are the best way to get feedback. People are the most comfortable to, I don't know, complain about random stuff, to go on a rant, if you will. And as long as you are able to kind of understand what they're complaining about, not just hear that they're ranting or something, understand where the what where the frustration comes from, let's say, then that's, I don't know, super valuable,
Yeah.
because you can keep an eye on it. You can think how, okay, let's improve this because it's not working, it's getting people frustrated, or things like this. So yeah, one-on-ones are definitely uh,
The
the
way to go.
number one uh, mechanism for getting feedback, I think.
All right,
And
Vlad, I
do you
interrupted
mind if
you,
I?
so
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just wanted to kind of now add on that. Um, the one-on-ones. I guess who takes the lead on that? Who's is there a senior developer that would kind of do the one-on-ones, or who? If you don't have a scrum master, I would say who
Mhm.
organizes those.
So we don't have a scrum master in my team. I am the manager, and I've got four team members, and these one-on-ones are like one-on-one check-ins.
Oh yeah.
uh, and I don't, I don't know. I'm used to a concept from the first company, from Cubase, where we did not not management, but we were career management, or career
Mhm.
managers, And I don't know. I really like that idea. I'm not there to manage a person. I'm there just to help that person, and not even in the context of their current role or job, let's say, in this company, but whatever suits their career. And whenever I give advices, for example, I will try to advise them like what is best for them to move forward in their career, not in, I don't know, in their current specific situation right now. Of course, if there's an issue right now and that needs addressing, we make sure to address that. But otherwise, we look long term.
all right. So coming back to the basics now, we
Yeah.
have perhaps people looking to make the switch from any other job into IT, into development. And from your perspective, what would be your choice or your path of choice? What would you recommend to someone who's, let's say, 30 and they want to make that switch and they don't really want to spend, or they may want to spend 4 years or 3 years in university, or they want to do a course, if that's doable. Like there's the informal school of IT and other stuff in Romania where you do a 6 months course and then you pay quite a decent sum of money, or do you go for online? And any recommendation really, what would
Mhm.
you go for?
I think it really depends on uh, that person's background and what they did until now. So if you know your way around computers, and you are kind of a techie, it's going to be a lot easier to get into any of these IT roles, let's say. If you don't have experience with computers, it's going to be a lot harder to get into. But of course, if you are determined, if you're a fast learner, and so on, you can. So it's all up to you ultimately. Um, but let's assume it's somebody with uh, who knows how to use a computer right, and so on. I think then you mentioned a couple of things, whether you should do a course and pay some, I don't know, some money for it. There's advantages to that. One, there's commitment from your side, because you're committing money, so you're more likely to kind of follow through and be, I don't know, pay attention, be more involved, and so on. And usually I think there's companies behind these courses as well. And almost always, I think, at the end, um, at least some of the people, some, or at least the good ones, will end up in internships or with offers from local IT companies. So you've got
Okay.
like a gateway there, I think.
All right.
Uh,
And what if you
on
don't
the
want to spend those money? Sorry.
Yeah, if you don't want to spend money, then I think tutorials on YouTube, Pluralsight, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of free content, um, and I think it's good content. For example, that's how I like to learn new technologies. I don't necessarily go to a course. I just take some tutorials from the web. Usually those longer ones, which deal with the project. So like how to build a music app or a Spotify clone using Flutter. So that way you don't just, I don't know, learn how to put a button here and there, because that's without purpose, let's say. Instead, you take it from start to finish. Of course, the first chapter will be like learning the basics and so on. But then you actually start thinking about issues. Okay, we need storage because we need to save some data about the user. Okay, let's look at the storage. Let's start implementing. You usually run into issues. Okay, but what if the user does that? Or what if we need to store some other kind of data? Or what if we need to sync it across devices? And that's how you start learning the technology stack, the framework. And at the end, you've got a functioning app, and you know where the end is. You've got an achievement, let's say. So that's a perfectly good way to learn. And once you've got the skills, and even in the meantime, I think internships are there for people to learn. As long as you know programming at a decent level, I would say start applying to internships. There's a larger discussion there, because when you're 30 years old, you probably got a salary, right? So you might have some expectations. So what do you do? Do you quit your job and go into an unpaid internship, or go on to a lower salary maybe, if you actually get an offer? That's a larger discussion that I think, I don't know, it's different
Yeah.
for everyone depending
Yeah.
on their.
Agreed. I mean, I think this is where you need to draw the line and think about, do you really want to do this or not?
Yeah, well, I mean, you should have thought before, like, starting this, not when.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, absolutely. So, in terms of in terms of internships, in your
Mhm.
experience, is it relatively, as long as you've learned practically how to use the software, is it relatively easy to get one? Or are they, or even at internship levels, do they not look for any certifications or any minimum amount of qualification?
No, so you do need a minimum of amount of qualification. I mean, for a developer to join an internship, we expect that developer to know at least basic programming. So that would be the equivalent of, let's say, 1 year um, in college, right? In an IT profile, or I don't know. At least in Romania, if you finish like an informatics or technology high school, you are already ready for the internship,
Oh,
because usually you learn enough programming in the last 2 years, and then you're good for an internship. But without it, you are kind of lost. You don't know the tools. You don't know where to start. You would be lost.
I see.
But also, we don't expect people who already worked, for 6 months, let's say, in programming, to join an internship. Those people already have kind of
Some
the
experience.
experience. Yeah.
And
Um,
as a follow up question, then how useful do you personally think university or college basically is in IT, or
Um,
necessary at all, if it is.
I don't know. So if I look at the CV, I don't really care about their college. It's their experience that matters, and I not even the certifications. I don't put value on them. Like at the first company, one of the uh, best engineers there finished letters, so he was on a human profile, and um also in one of the teams we had somebody who finished yeah I can't get the word in English, veterinarian,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
a vet.
Right.
vet school, yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
And he was like one of the best engineers.
Oh,
So it doesn't really matter,
So
I
there is
think.
hope.
Yeah,
there's
there's
there's a path forward at least.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, we started talking about getting into development directly, but there's actually other paths as well. You can join as a QA engineer, right? So as a tester,
Yeah.
you can join on the product side as a product manager. You can, I don't know, there's a lot of other roles in the industry which can serve as a gateway once you learn what developing a product or a piece of software means. Then you already have like the basis, so you can start exploring, let's say, new roles. And that also makes it easier. So if you're learning programming in your free time, maybe, I don't know, an opportunity arises where there's a new project in the company. They might need, I don't know, some help from a junior, and you're that perfect junior that can help, in a larger team with two or three other developers. Then you can start building up experience, uh, and all of the sudden you find yourself a lead on the next project.
And
Y- y-
does your company, sorry, again, I'll quickly ask, does your company offer upskilling or retraining, kind of, if you basically joined as a product manager or as a QA tester and you're interested in uh, switching over to development, does the company support you, or in your experience, do most companies support that type of transition and training?
Um, I'm not sure about UiPath if there's like a set in stone process for that, but I think uh, this is a discussion that you can have with your manager. As I said, in one-on-ones, if somebody tells me that they no longer want to do development, that they want to do product management, I will try my best to facilitate that discussion forward, to get the right people involved so that they can make the switch inside the company if possible. If not, I'm not going to tell them, stay here because this is good and this is what I wanted to do. I will still encourage them, even if that means for them to leave the company. I think I would still encourage them to follow their
Yeah.
dreams in a sense, right? But to give you examples from my first company where I worked together with Andrei, there we had quite a few people doing like role switches. And it was both from QA to engineering, and we also had from engineering to testing.
All right.
So
But the more you describe what you do now, the more it starts to seem like you're an unofficial Scrum Master for your team.
yeah.
Don't trigger
No.
him. Um,
No.
Yeah. Do not.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. Sorry, Andre.
but
I interrupted you
yeah,
there.
I actually want to answer the same question, and I think this is something that we are going. I mean, this is surely something that we're gonna explore. Is also the QA side of things soon enough with some guests. But indeed, from my experience and throughout different companies that either I've been in, either I've spoken to people or friends who have been there, I do see a trend of there's there's a chance, there's an opening. They usually want their people to have the most comfort or be in the right position. So I've seen transitions, as Marius mentioned, from dev to QA, from QA to dev. I mean, I was one of those transitions where I got into the QA internship, started learning programming, and at some point I was a developer, but it wasn't like Marius mentioned that at some point I would be lead. I wasn't, um, sadly. Cue in the music. So yeah, that's, I mean, that's the, yeah, I think that's something that we're gonna want to explore as well. If you want to get your foot in through the door, perhaps QA would be an easier way because you don't have to learn specific programming or anything. And coming to programming, which is something I wanted to ask earlier, and now here we are again. What about technology?
Mhm.
What, I mean, there's so many things out there. Like you mentioned Flutter earlier, and there's so many
Mhm.
options out there. Is there, I mean, are there any basics that you should be going for first and then learning something that's more, I guess, specific or more mobile oriented, or what would you recommend?
Mhm. I think while learning, right, you need to try to pick something which is easy to set up. Um, and by easy to set up, I mean you don't need to install all kinds of tools to get started. You can just work in the browser, let's say. So for that, you've got a JavaScript. I think you can even do Python in the browser, but if not, it's just a small thing that you need to install, and you are kind of up and going. If you want to do stuff like Android development, yeah, you need to install a lot of tools. You need to have emulators. That's, I don't know. It's somewhere along the line, down the road, let's say, yeah, you might want to do that. But when you learn the basic, when you learn um, what an if, what a loop is, just go with JavaScript or something like Python, which is easy to set up, and you can do it from anywhere. Like if you're learning JavaScript, there's a lot of websites, and you can do it from any computer. You can do it from your mobile phone or tablet, and you can learn. And once you know the structures, once you learn a programming language, those skills are easily transferred to another one. So um, like an if or a while loop and stuff like this, they are all the same. They are just written a bit differently in each language. And then on top of the language, you've got the framework, which, yeah, you need to kind of learn, but that's again a thing that you will learn as you go. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about which um, language to, or learning a specific language that a certain company uses. Just learn something that is easy to learn. um, one Before joining UiPath, I had an interview with one company, and they said a super nice thing, that the language or the framework is just like a means to an end. So just a tool to solve a problem. We don't really care about what languages or frameworks, we care about how you think. If you are able to break down problems and get to a solution, then the rest can be learned. So you will learn that new language, you will learn that new tool, and yeah, as long as you're able to problem solve and collaborate with teammates, that's the most important thing we're looking for.
All right, and I think we're seamlessly transitioning into what exactly do you need, or how you should be as a
Mhm.
developer. Like, do you need attention to detail? Problem solving, obviously, it's a huge one, and I do agree with it. But any other skills or even soft skills that you can think about or you're looking for in an interview, for example?
In an interview, so for an intern, I think if we're talking about that intern role, I think the attitude is the most important. If you see passion when that person talks, I think that's the most important thing. It That person is committed, so um, yeah, then of course that person, you're looking for wittiness or smartness. I don't know if you can't really evaluate a person for an internship based on their technical skills, but because those technical skills are, I don't know, things which they learned from a course, they maybe didn't put it in practice. So with time, I think they can learn that stuff. But passion or a good attitude, it's something that you can, I don't know, it's hard to change
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
don't have it.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, do you have an example of maybe a kind of either a few questions that either you went through or you've asked somebody that either they get answered wrongly usually, or there are more of the odd ones out?
Yeah, I can't think of any. I'm not a big fan of trap questions or trick questions either. Um, Usually, when I'm in interviews, I just follow up on that person's CV if it's um, for a more senior role, and on what they've done, and try to understand like how deep they know what they've done. Because if they can only touch the surface, yeah, they will explain it on the surface, but then okay, but you must have had this problem. You try to dive deeper, and then you understand if that person really understood what they did, if they did that, or they just know what was done, and
Yeah.
maybe it was implemented by somebody else, they just used it. um, for for juniors, it's kind of the same, but at a different level. If they've done some small application, they will, as soon as you ask them if they're passionate, they will start telling you about all the issues they've encountered, how they solved them, and that entire process where, I don't know, and what bugs they found. And yeah, I don't know, if you feel passion, I think that's the most important thing. um,
No, fair enough.
Right on. And was wondering, now in this new age with AI and everything,
mhm.
and especially on interviews, because I know there's some, I guess, problem solving required there on the spot.
Mhm.
I mean, how do you see, for example, ChatGPT playing into this? Is it, or actually, do you think this is a benefit? First of all, do you think it's a risk, especially for people that perhaps can use it even in interviews? And
Mhm. Yeah, in interviews, I guess it can be a risk, especially if you do them over Zoom, right? Um, but I don't know. Even there, it's if you're screen sharing, it's not like you can just take your mouse out the screen without anybody noticing, copy and pasting stuff, So usually when you do this kind of stuff live, so if you solve some problems live, they will see your screen. We will go together through the issue, and you will be explaining your thought process. So I don't really see an issue there. Only if you send them, I guess, um, a problem to solve over email and then expect some reply. But then again, in that scenario, they could have just asked somebody else to solve that problem, so not
Yeah.
necessarily ChatGPT.
All right, fair
I see.
enough.
So
And
do you
since
mainly see it? Sorry, go on, Andre.
just a quick one from me, then since we're on ChatGPT, I was about to say, do you find any value in using it as a developer?
Yeah, I'm super bad at regex, for example, and
Okay.
I was surprised to learn that it does regex very good. So I would just tell it, give me a pattern which allows this, I don't know, to start with these letters and with those, and they should only appear once in the string, and it generates you the regex perfectly. It explains every single bit of character in that pattern, so it's really nice. Or if you need commands for certain stuff, so like give me a PowerShell script that does this and this and this, it will like give you maybe 99 or even 100% of that script. So I don't have to learn PowerShell syntax, for example. So it's
Nice.
really good for that. Or Visual Basic, for example, I have to work with Visual Basic from time to time. I'm not proficient in Visual Basic, but if you give me like a piece of code in Visual Basic, I can modify it to work. So I can use ChatGPT to kind of get the boilerplate of what I want to do, copy paste it, start modifying it, and in the end, I get to the end result. If I had to write all of that on my own, come up with everything, it would have been more painful. I could still get to that same result. Maybe I would have learned more for the next time, but
Yeah.
in
It's
this
a powerful
instance,
tool.
I was faster. Yeah. So I think it's a really nice. I don't know. GitHub calls it nicely. GitHub Copilot, right? So it's a really
Mhm.
nice copilot for developers.
Nice. Back to Vlad. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No. It was literally the exact question that I was going to ask you. Asked about how you see
Nice.
it as a tool. No, that's fair. Marius, do you mind if I ask kind of what, in your personal opinion, what is the ideal size of a development team? You said you work in a team of 5 at the moment.
Mhm.
Do you seem, is that about right? Is that too small? Could you use maybe some more people?
Um, I think I don't know. It's hard to kind of draw the line in the sand at a certain number. I can tell you, we were before we split into smaller teams, we were like 20.
All right.
That didn't work.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so we split into 4 teams, 4 smaller teams, and I think this is working a lot better. And you can the nice thing about it is that you can kind of have ownership, areas of ownership for the teams, and
Yeah.
um,
So
yeah,
is it in general, the smaller the team, the better, just because you get that ownership, that collaboration, that.
yeah, but I wouldn't, I don't know, if we were just 3 developers, that would be maybe too small.
Fair enough.
So I think 5 is nice. Maybe 6 would also be nice. But if we talk of I don't know, 8, 10, or 10 plus, I think that's I don't know. It would be hard for me to keep in a sync with what everybody is working at a detailed level, and to also be able to help each other.
Yeah.
Uh, I think when you are that large number in a team, people will just, I don't know, phase off in syncs. They will not necessarily care about what everybody is doing, but maybe they will know about 2 3 people which are working in the same area and pay attention to those. And otherwise, I don't know. If you ask them what that other person was working on, what they said, they wouldn't know.
Fair
It's too
enough.
much.
Fair enough. All right. One more thing, which it may seem like we're jumping, but I kept wanting to ask this question for a
We're
while now.
sitting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of touched on it, but I want to get just a bit more details on it. If you think that certifications matter at any point in a developer's career. So let's not just pick on the interns on the internship level, but let's say for a junior software engineer who wants to transition to another company, or I guess wants to raise in rank.
Yeah, I think they can be useful in certain companies. So if, especially in outsourcing companies, right? Those companies benefit from having certified people, because when they go and present their team, it looks a lot better if those people are certified, right? But if you are, let's say, a product company which looks to hire a smart person to implement something, right? You don't really care um, about the diploma, right? Uh, you care about how smart that person is, how that person is able to solve your problems. Um, it can be used maybe as a filter by some companies. So if you don't have a certification, maybe they will just, if they have like a stack of 100 CVs and 50 of them have certifications and 50 do not, they might, I'm not saying they will, they might, and I think it's a mistake to just discard the other 50.
Yeah.
Um, but that's, I don't know. You can kind of easily work around that, just get some certification from LinkedIn, from some course, or
Yeah.
at least to have one on your CV, and you do not get discarded, let's say. Yeah, in outsourcing, I think they can provide value, not necessarily, well, they will provide value to you ultimately, because the company will want to retain you if you have 10 certifications, right? And that company can use those 10 certifications forward towards their clients to kind of sell the company services. Then you become more valuable to that company.
Yeah.
So
Nice. Yeah.
I think the
Makes sense.
certifications can also be used to rise in a membership, for example, on Microsoft. If you have people
yeah,
with specific number of certifications, you're a gold member, and then you get some extra features. And
yes,
what I would
that's
also say, and what I've also realized, for example, for the Scrum Master role, is they do ask you for certifications in job interviews. And I guess where it affects me, for example, or Scrum Masters, is recruiters. They don't usually go to you on LinkedIn, for example, unless you have specific keywords or certifications that
Mhm.
basically checks the job description.
I think um, it's twofold, let's say, because if you've got enough experience to put like what you've done above those certifications, then those certifications don't matter. And again, if they use it as a filter to count you out, that's completely wrong. if you are at the beginning uh, with little experience, or even if you have some experience, you cannot say I've transformed some company and yeah, changed the way they do business. Then certifications definitely help, because these companies, I think they want to hire you to help them implement Scrum, right?
Yeah.
um, why should we hire you if you,
Yeah.
I don't know, to teach us? You must have at least some certification. And there are other roles similar to this, like if you want to do real top um, level management, let's say, you are looking for people either with a lot of experience in those roles, or maybe people with experience in similar roles but with a certain certification towards this role that you are looking for. um, because it kind of, I don't know, it's an it's an attestation that you have
Yeah.
knowledge about what you have to do.
Yeah. Basically,
But yeah, you
it,
have a good point about,
Yeah, a
yeah.
minimum guarantee kind of certain skill sets.
Hmm.
Yeah.
all right. Hoping that's clear enough for the listeners as well, because we kind of went back and forth on it, but
Yeah,
it
I
it
think
makes sense
I
to
think
me at
even
least.
because we were talking at the beginning about the real junior roles or interns. I know a lot of these courses from different websites and even LinkedIn. They give certificates of completion.
Yeah.
Even those, I think, at their level where they don't have any experience, those are valuable.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to show them off. I saw some, I don't know. Of course, when you've already got 1 or 2 years of experience, you can remove them, and you don't need to put 100 courses completed on LinkedIn and have a 5 page CV. But when you don't have any experience, that's what you can and you have to show off.
Yeah. I do recall my first CV where basically I did acting prior to that and some various jobs. And I actually put on the CV learned, and I put the
Hmm.
courses that I've learned so far and learning, and the courses that I was actually in the process of learning, and everything was just links to websites. So
Yeah,
yeah, I guess to some extent, uh,
that's
if you need
perfect.
to, yeah, if you need to do it, and then
Adapt.
as you progress in rank, you will see that perhaps you won't need to mention the courses that you're learning or what you've studied. You just add perhaps certificates, and then at some point you just let the experience talk for you.
Yeah, it's all about providing the relevant experience, right? In all of the context, and this is not uh, right now we're talking about relevant in the sense that it's for a certain level, but it's also when you apply for programming, right? I don't know, you can say that you were a guard for 10 years, but that's not relevant. In that CV, you should put the
Yeah.
programming courses that you've done and things like this. If they want to learn about your employment history, that can be okay. On request, you can give them the employment history. You can talk about it, because it's when you talk about something, it's a lot more nuanced, and they can understand. You can explain better what led to that history. Let's say, why do you want to make the change, stuff like this.
All right. All right. Do you mind if I ask, Anna, just to kind of widen the conversation up a little bit? How do you see the current IT industry? I know there's a lot of layoffs happening, especially in the US, around Silicon Valley. How do you see things changing or evolving?
I I don't it depends on the war, I think. I
Yeah.
I'm I don't want to blame the war for everything that's happened, but it's certainly contributed. You know, all the companies are a lot more careful with how they spend their money, how they are planning ahead. Let's say they don't know what's going to happen, what will be in a year from now if the war escalates, and the markets. Um, you cannot really ignore the market, the stock market, you know, and a lot of companies are trying to switch from like full growth, because until now you didn't really know to show you didn't really need to show that you can make a profit, right? You would just take a lot of money, spend a lot of money, and show that you have an increase in revenue, even if your costs were a lot bigger. But right now, the market wants to see that a company is stable, that they can be profitable. So that's why a lot of companies, I think, they're making cost cuts and doing layoffs.
I see.
It's
And
yeah, it's not
yeah.
nice to see, of course, but
But are there any specific skill sets that, from a developer's point of view, that would be more useful in this economy versus, or anything that you could do to adapt to the way that the industry is now or is becoming compared to how it was?
I think despite the layoffs, I think there's still quite a lot of open positions, you know, and
Yeah.
I don't think we have more developers than jobs, to be honest. So I think in order to be ready, it's the same. I don't know, just keep up to date with what is happening in this industry of yours, right?
Yeah.
um, Technology wise, network wise, keep a network, keep building a network. Don't shut people down. If you move from one company to another, don't burn bridges, because you never know when you are going to receive an offer from an ex-colleague to join them at another company, or I don't know. So networking, keeping up to date with technologies, and
No, very, very good advice.
if if a layoff hits you, I'm not sure. Yeah, there's not much you can do, and usually, at least in big corporations, there's also not much. I don't know, not a lot that you can do to control your faith. Let's uh,
Yeah, I see. It doesn't necessarily tend to be performance based, or from what I've noticed,
mhm.
it tends to be by the numbers. So if you're just unlucky enough to have drawn the short straw, but yeah,
Yeah,
as you said, there's plenty of other opportunities. So even if you did kind of did draw the short straw, there's there's still a future.
yeah. So the Microsoft layoffs, right? It I don't know all the details, but I saw entire teams getting like cut off, and it was like, okay, we stop working on this product because we don't see it bringing value. And you might have had the best talent in there. They
Mm.
didn't really look at that. They just cut the product, so they laid off that team. Yeah, in big organizations, there's also the chance that you can apply for a different job internally. So even if you got laid off, you could still get rehired in your company, but on a different product team. I saw that happen with a couple of people. um, and there's where the network maybe plays in,
Yeah.
because if you stay within your team, nobody knows about you. um, there's little chances of success. But if other people from other teams which were not laid off know how good you are and so on. Maybe they will see that as an opportunity to kind of keep you and, hey, let's keep this guy, you know.
Yeah, fair enough. No, that's
All
a
right.
very good point.
So, as we're nearing towards the end and we want to wrap up this session, I'm wondering if you want to leave our viewers slash listeners with any tips and tricks or any motivational speeches.
Nah, I don't do motivational speeches.
Fine, then just the tips and tricks.
I don't know. It's tips and tricks, I think, are always based on your context. Just I don't looking back at the junior roles and the entry level positions. If you are committed and if you do want to make the switch, um, if you show your interest in that role in that company, I think you can get hired and you can do a good job. So
Fair enough.
it ended up being motivational, right?
Yeah, it's like do your best.
Yeah, keep learning is also kind of, I guess, never
Yeah.
stop learning
Yeah.
is. All right, perfect. Well, thank you very much, Marius.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries. All right, and
And yeah,
goodbye, Andre. Goodbye.
that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Bye all.
Bye bye.